This is the Bronx, one of the 5 boroughs of New York City. It's a community dotted with mom and pop shops along most streets. Basketball courts provide a safe haven for many of the area's youth, where they can take their mind off the crime and violence that has sadly become part of everyday life in their neighborhoods. It's also the home of Bronx Household of Faith, a ministry that has been holding worship services in this public school building for years and has made a mark in the lives of many. Churches like Bronx Household that meet in public school buildings have done immeasurable good for the communities that need it most, from feeding the poor, helping to rehabilitate drug addicts and gang members, and even helping Naeem Henry realize his potential when he was just in 5th grade.
The church has been relevant in this community for how many years now that I've been here? And I've seen a lot of boys that's grown up very small transition into great men.
It was the Bible studies that changed Naeem's life and many of his friends' lives forever. It helped them realize their worth. But despite years of selfless service for communities in need, Bronx Household and many other churches and ministries meet for worship services only because of a court order prohibiting New York City from enforcing its policy that bans worship services from vacant public schools. Bronx Household of Faith and other churches help those in need by connecting them to their worship services, which the churches regard as the center of what they do as a community of Christians. That's where the real help happens. Over the years, New York City opened the doors of its schools for a vast array of activities by local community groups, some of which includes dance recitals, study programs for students, Boy Scouts and Girl Scout meetings, flea markets, local sporting events, labor union meetings, and even the taping of TV shows like Law and Order. But the city specifically excludes worship services, and though Bronx Household of Faith and other churches want to continue to provide for those in need in all boroughs of New York City, they wouldn't be able to if the Supreme Court turns down the appeal in this case, and New York City then enforces its policy and bars religious groups from meeting for worship services in the public schools. Jordan Lawrence, an attorney with Alliance Defending Freedom, has been fighting on the ministry's behalf since 1995.
New York City seems to have this kind of secularist viewpoint, sort of a leftover from the 1950s and 60s, this extreme view of separation of church and state that wow, if we let a church meet in a public school, there goes the neighborhood.
The city of New York argues that by allowing churches to meet in empty public facilities, it is somehow violating the Establishment Clause of the U.S. Constitution. But Jordan Lawrence says that is not the case.
When the government accommodates religious speakers, private religious speakers and private religious groups, it's fulfilling its duty to accommodate and protect their rights to freedom of speech and religious liberties under the First Amendment.
Attorneys with Alliance Defending Freedom requested that the U.S. Supreme Court hears this case and hope that the court affirms the right of churches to use public buildings like every other group, and so the ministries can continue to love and serve their neighbors. But for now, this ministry is hoping and praying that the Supreme Court takes this case and rules in their favor, so Bronx Household of Faith and other ministries won't be shut out of school buildings and shut out of the communities they love. Because remember, this is New York, and even if you can find the real estate, is it affordable?